So you want to know what the differences are between a heavy-duty truck and a light-duty truck, something like this 2019 Ram 2500 heavy-duty that we have, compared to maybe something like the Ram 1500 Limited we featured almost a year ago. Well, you're in luck. We're going to be going over that here today. Now, if you are a truck enthusiast or you've just been around trucks for a long time, you might find this information kind of redundant. You probably already know this, so this might not be the video for you. But if you're like me, and you haven't had a whole lot of experience with heavy-duty trucks and you're really curious to know more about it, then you're in luck. First, I want to talk about the ton ratings. It's something that you'll hear quite a bit, especially when it comes to vehicles like the F-150, the Chevrolet Silverado 1500, or the Ram 1500. They're considered half-ton trucks. But where did that come from? It was originally how much payload a truck could have. But what is payload? That's essentially everything that you put into the truck that isn't a trailer. That includes passengers and cargo. So it's not just what goes in the bed, but also the people inside of it. Now, originally a half-ton pickup truck could haul half a ton. It makes sense, right? By US measurements, a ton is 2,000 pounds. So a half-ton truck would have a 1,000-pound payload, which was something like an F-100 or a Chevrolet 1000 series vehicle. You go up to a 1500 series vehicle from Chevrolet, that was a 3/4 ton. But because those naming conventions really stuck, that's what we have today. So even though an F-150 or something like this Ram 2500 doesn't really line up with its payload anymore, it's just easier for consumers to understand. And thankfully, all the manufacturers more or less use a similar naming convention: 1.5 for a half ton, 2.5 for a 3/4 ton, and 3.5 for a 1 ton. But let's go over that. A 1/4 ton truck might come up in some conversations. That would include things like the Chevrolet Colorado, GMC Canyon, Ford Ranger, or the Mazda B series pickup trucks, Dodge Dakota, which doesn't exist anymore, Honda Ridgeline, Toyota Tacoma, or the Nissan Frontier. A half-ton truck, which is the most popular sold in North America, includes things like the Chevrolet Silverado 1500, GMC Sierra 1500, Ford F-150, Ram 1500, Toyota Tundra, and the Nissan Titan. Something like this Ram 2500 is a 3/4 ton truck. That also includes the Chevrolet Silverado 2500 and the GMC Sierra 2500, the Ford F-250, and you can consider the Nissan Titan XD in that class. And then finally, the 1-ton trucks. These are the biggest pickup trucks that come from the factory with a pickup bed, would include the Chevrolet Silverado and GMC Sierra 3500, the Ford F-350, and the Ram 3500. And what you get with those trucks will differ greatly between the manufacturers. So remember, ton ratings used to be based on how much a vehicle could haul. Today, it's just an easy way to classify them. In the case of this Ram 2500, it has a gross vehicle weight rating of 10,000 pounds. It also says on the VIN that it has a maximum capacity for stuff and people of 1,800 pounds. So if you subtract 1,800 from that 10,000 pound total weight rating, you're looking at a truck that weighs 8,200 pounds. Now, all of this information is on the trucks themselves. It's very important when you're looking at either a light duty or a heavy duty pickup truck like this to make sure that the vehicle you're purchasing has the gross vehicle weight rating and trailer tow rating that is required for whatever you're doing. In this case, this is pretty good for a heavy duty pickup truck, but if you're towing more than, say, 16,000 pounds, or you need more than about 1,800 pounds of payload, you're gonna have to go up to something bigger. Now, I want to talk a little bit about this Ram 2500 because there is some marketing that might get you confused. A lot of talk came out this year about Ram being the first pickup truck brand to hit the 1,000 pound-feet of torque mark. Now, that's true on the 3500. On this 2500, it uses a 6.7 liter Cummins turbo diesel engine, but it's not that 400 horsepower, 1,000 pound-feet of torque version. This is 370 horsepower and 850 pound-feet of torque. Still fantastic numbers for a truck, but just keep that in mind that you're going to go online, you're going to be looking at maybe the 6.7 Cummins, and they're going to be advertising it everywhere that it has 1,000 pound-feet of torque, when in reality, that is the high output version of this engine. Also, when it comes to the Ram 3500, it uses a 6-speed automatic heavy-duty transmission from Aisin, whereas this version, the 2500, uses a 6-speed transmission from Chrysler. How about those lights that you see on the top of big rigs and vehicles like the Ram 2500? Well, here in Canada, they're called clearance lights. You can also call them marker lights, and they are required by law, both in Canada and in the United States. Here in Canada, The clearance lights, the ones on the sides, they have to be on vehicles wider than 2,032 millimeters. That doesn't include the mirror width, it's the body width of the vehicle. And there must be 2 of them at a minimum, and they have to be as high as possible in this yellow color. There's also front identification lamps. Those are the 3 lights that you see on the top middle. There has to be only 3 of them on the front, in the center, and horizontally spaced 150 millimeters apart and as high as practically possible, or on the top of the cab, just like we see here. Those requirements are pretty much the same in the US, which is why you'll see it on these size of vehicles, because they are wider. And one thing to note, if you look at the Ford F-150 Raptor, they do use clearance lights and marker lights. They're slightly different. They put them on the front of the vehicle, but they are required by law, and somehow Ford has gotten around not putting them necessarily as high as possible. Alright, what about the engines and transmissions? Great question. Well, often heavy-duty pickup trucks do come with large diesel engines, but they do have a base gas engine. That might be something you don't know, especially again if you're coming to these trucks for the first time. You might just assume that they all have big diesel engines, but that's not the case. This Ram 2500 would come with Chrysler's 6.4 liter Hemi V8 as standard, but it has been upgraded to the 6.7 liter Cummins turbo diesel. Now, even though it has a large displacement, 6.7, again, most might assume that it's a V8, but in fact, this Cummins engine is an inline 6. And for the most part, Cummins really specializes in inline 6 and inline 4 engines. That's not to say that they only make inline 6s. They have a 95 liter V16 engine that you can get in a freight train. It's not going to be on a vehicle like this, obviously, but when it comes to the Ram brand, they're using an inline 6, not a V8. Same goes when you look at the other domestic pickup truck brands. Ford's base engine is a 6.2 liter single overhead cam V8 gas engine, but you can upgrade to their 6.7 liter Power Stroke turbo diesel V8. When it comes to General Motors, they use a 6.6 liter gas V8 in their base model for the heavy duty trucks, but you can upgrade to a 6.6 liter turbo diesel Duramax. Yes, now all these brands do have their own branding and marketing for their engines. However, Cummins is a separate company. So when Ram went to Cummins to get an engine for their heavy duty trucks, they're still built by Cummins, whereas the Ford Power Stroke is a Ford engine, and same with Chevrolet's Duramax, it is a GM engine built by GM. Transmissions are also different. The base model Ram 2500 with the V8 gas has an 8-speed TorqueFlite transmission. This 2500 with the 6.7 Cummins has a 6-speed transmission, again manufactured by Chrysler. Ford uses their TorqueShift 6-speed. However, for 2020, they are offering a new 7.3 liter gas engine that uses a 10-speed transmission. When we talk about GM, it's a little different. It's a little interesting. They use a 6-speed automatic on their gas engines, but they're now going with a 10-speed automatic on their Duramax diesel, and it's advertised as an Allison transmission. Again, that is a brand. It's a separate company. However, it's not really an Allison transmission. It's basically their blueprints for a transmission, but it's built in-house by General Motors. But what else makes this a heavy-duty truck over something like the Ram 1500? Well, in the case of this Ram 2500, it has a transfer case made by Borg-Warner. It uses stronger axles, a stronger frame with a wider front frame rail setup so that the vehicle can haul more and tow more. The suspension is designed for use under constant load, whereas most light-duty pickup trucks can take a load, but not all the time. It also has larger brake calipers, boosters, and a master cylinder, along with the exhaust braking found on the Cummins turbo diesel. You don't get that with the 6.4 liter Hemi. The cab options are also different as well. This has a mega cab, which means you can't get the 8-foot bed, but it does have extra space in the cab for storage or reclining the rear seats. And finally, one of the other things that you can only get on heavy-duty trucks are the dual rear wheel setup. On the Ram, you have to go up to the Ram 3500 to have that, but vehicles like the Ford F350 or F450 can have it, as well as the Chevrolet Silverado and GMC Series 3500s. So there's a lot of different options, a lot of different things you can do with these trucks. These really are meant to be used as pickup trucks. People should not really be buying them just to tool around, even though they do. I mean, you get a lot more with it, but for the most part, these are meant to be either under constant load because you've got a huge trailer, you're loading it up with stuff, or you're using it for heavy duty purposes. But now I want to take this vehicle on a road test. I want to talk a little bit about how it performs in comparison to a light duty truck like the Ram 1500, or more specifically like the Ford F-150 we featured just a couple weeks ago. I want to tell you how it feels on the road in comparison to that, and then we'll wrap up our little episode here on what you need to know on a beginner's guide to heavy duty pickup trucks. So we're on the drive now for our Cummins powered turbo diesel Ram 2500. So there's going to be a couple things you're going to note. Again, if you haven't had any experience with a pickup truck, period, coming from a car, this is going to be a really huge shift for you. But if you're coming from a pickup truck, if you've driven something like a regular half-ton truck, even if it's been for a while, and you're coming to a 3/4 ton, it is still a bit of a learning curve. I mean, this vehicle is much bigger, it's much longer, it's taller, it's wider. The visibility is also kind of funky with these. I flipped the mirrors up into the tow position just because I see better out of them. Even though they're further away from me, it just works out better. Something like the F-Series pickup truck from Ford, you can have extendable mirrors so they can be in the normal position during normal use, and then if you are towing something, you can shoot them out an extra half foot or foot or so you can have better visibility around your trailer. But unfortunately with this Ram, the way that it's configured, this is how we've got it. But actually visibility is worse around the truck. Rear visibility is better, but because you've got the cross member that actually connects the mirror, taking up a substantial portion of visibility, and then now the mirrors stick up, you just can't see as much. So you have blind spots now if you come up to a stop sign, things like that. But something to note. And then just in general, I mean, this vehicle performs differently as well. The idea of a heavy duty pickup truck is meant to be doing things with it. It's not really to drive back and forth to get groceries and go through the drive-through. The idea is to haul with a gas-powered engine and to tow with a diesel-powered engine. And that's the main difference, especially with this generation of Ram 2500. If you're looking to put things in the truck, you want to have the most capacity. You want to be able to fit 5 full adults, maybe 5 people like me, bunch of stuff in the bed, maybe things in the back of the mega cab portion. You want to have the most hauling capacity. Something like the 6.4 gas Hemi engine will do better than this Cummins turbo diesel. But if you're towing things, you want to have it on either a hitch on the back or a gooseneck in the bed, you go with the Cummins. You're going to have more towing capacity. And it's not to say that you can't tow with the Hemi and you can't haul with the Cummins. You just got to make sure that you're buying the truck and configuring it the way that you need it for, based on your needs. And that's something that we talk about even when it comes to the half-ton trucks. You got to do your research because every little thing changes it. And that's why something like this has such a low payload, because there's just so much stuff on it that it ends up weighing the truck down and reduces the amount of payload you can put into it. Now, one of the things to note about the diesel engine on this, and pretty much goes for any of the 3/4 ton or 1 ton pickup trucks, you have an exhaust brake system. And something that you don't get on the half-ton pickup trucks, and you don't get it even on the half-ton pickup trucks that have their smaller diesel engines. It essentially allows the engine to slow down without having to use your brakes as much. So we currently have it in automatic mode. If you're going down a hill, it will automatically use the exhaust braking to help slow you down or keep you at about the same speed. You can put on full braking, which as soon as you pull off the gas, you take your foot off the gas, it will slow down. And that's that sound that the truck makes, blah, 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 as it's coming down. It's a very cool sound. I personally love it, and I like having it on, and it doesn't hurt the truck to use it. In fact, it's better to have it on even if you're not towing or hauling anything, because you're using less brake power. You're going to wear out your brakes less, just letting the engine do what it's pretty much doing normally, which is running. So you can help alleviate some of the stress on your brakes by doing that. I keep it on. With this truck, you have to turn it on each time, and it goes onto the full mode first, followed by automatic. So just something to note, it is a big difference over your regular half-ton pickup truck or non-diesel heavy duties. All right, now we're gonna do the drive-through test, right? I mean, if you're using this for work even, you still probably wanna grab a coffee. So you have the 360 camera. I'm not gonna use it for this because I've gone through here enough times now that it's really not that hard to navigate this specific drive-through, but you might find yourself in a situation where you go through drive-thrus, you're gonna have to put the truck into reverse, and you're gonna have to hope people aren't too close to you that you can make those turns. Wide turns, they're ideal. Certainly don't wanna hit the side of your truck when you're going around any of these turns. So again, something you have to keep in mind And also when it comes to the diesels, because the way that the drive-through systems work, they're using basically like a little radio to talk from you into their headset. You might have to turn off your truck when you get to the window or to get to the microphone so that they can actually hear you. I know that from personal experience. As we wrap up our beginner's guide to heavy-duty trucks, I want to quickly go over one last piece of classification info that we didn't go over when talking about the ton ratings, but is related to them. Ultimately, the U.S. Department of Transportation classifies trucks based on their gross vehicle weight rating, or GVWR. There are 8 classes, starting with Class 1, with a gross vehicle weight rating of 6,000 pounds or less. This includes the compact pickup trucks we discussed in the quarter-ton rating, like the Ford Ranger and Chevrolet Colorado. Class 2 covers GVWRs from 6,001 pounds to 10,000 pounds and includes both half-ton and 3/4-ton trucks like the Ram 1500 and Ram 2500. However, Class 2 is broken up into A and B, with 8,500 to 10,000 pounds in the B section, covering what we know as heavy-duty pickup trucks like the Ram 2500. However, as far as the US DOT is concerned, these are all light-duty pickup trucks, even the 2500s that are branded as heavy-duty. Class 3 through 6 are classified as medium-duty trucks, which is why you might see a vehicle like the Ford F450 chassis cab called a medium-duty, but the smaller F250 called a heavy-duty. The manufacturers like to use the term heavy-duty to distinguish their 3/4-ton and 1-ton trucks from the smaller half-ton, even though in actuality a heavy-duty truck, as far as the U.S. Department of Transportation is concerned, is something like a Ford F750. I know it's a little confusing. However, Jalopnik writer Andrew Collins wrote an excellent article back in 2014 on this subject, and I highly suggest reading it if you want to know more about this sort of thing. We do have a link for it in the description to that article. But I hope this episode of Test Drive Garage has helped you understand pickup truck terminology a little bit more. There's so much that we could go into, including chassis cab trucks, work vans like the E-Series or Ram ProMaster, but for now this should get your feet a little wet after a recent episode on the 2019 Ram 2500. Let us know in the comments below what you thought of this video and if there's another topic you'd like us to cover.